Then the other day, I seen the preacher. The preacher man asked me, he said, well, sir, he said, you think you can give me some directions? I said, well, yeah, what do you need directions to? He said, I'm trying to get to the Goodwill. And I know it's a Goodwill, we got a Goodwill on Canterbury up the street. And he said, I'm trying to get to the Goodwill. You know, he said, me and my wife new in town, we've been in Texas like 2 months. And he said, I'm a preacher. So, you know, I'm trying to donate clothes to the Goodwill and stuff so anybody can get them. So I'm like, okay. So I said, well, what we in right now? I said, it's like 3 minutes away from here. I was at the store. So I said, you just go up this way to Canterbury and you'll make a right. And I said, you'll see the Goodwill on the other side of the highway. He said, okay. He said, well, thank you for those directions. I said, okay, you're welcome, you know. So I finna go in the store. He said, well, hold on, young fella, let me ask you something else. He said, do you go to church? I said, well, yes, sir, I go to church. I said, I've been in church all my life. My grandfather been preaching all my life. He said, well, that's real good. He said, I said, but I ain't gonna lie to you, I haven't been in a while, so I may need to go. He's like, okay. He said, well, one of these days you need to come to my church. And I can give you the directions how to get to heaven. I said, no, you can't. If you couldn't get to the Goodwill, you can't get to heaven. I can't do that. For real. Yeah. The other day, my son lived with Hispanic, you know, Cinco de Mayo had just passed. So I told my son, I said, man, you know what? A friend of mine told me a joke. I said, I want to tell it to y'all just to see if y'all laugh. And they were like, okay. I said, but don't get mad though, because my son and they mixed with Hispanic. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to see if it works. I think it did though. I told my they said, well, Daddy, what's the joke? I said, okay. I said, well, why Mexican people don't barbecue? And he looked, he's like, oh man, he like, well, we barbecue more than probably anybody in the world. I said, well, son, just listen to it. I said, well, I'm gonna ask you again, why Mexican people don't barbecue? And he said, well, I don't know, Daddy, tell me. I said, well, they beans keep falling through the grill. Yeah. Yeah. You know, the other day I came to work. Well, I'll tell you like that. I'll take it a little back further. I was at home one day. I was watching. Y'all remember that the Dorothy Wizard of Oz? There's no place like home, right? Yeah, I was at home the other day. I was watching. It just happened to come on. Dorothy the Wizard of Oz. I said, man, you know, I wish I could follow that yellow brick road. The only thing I would like was the Wicked Witch and her little thing that she had. But I say, oh man, you know, I wonder if I go to work one day and click my head 3 times and say there's no place like home, will I automatically, you know, pop up at home. So I came in and tried it, and it worked. So I'm like, oh man, the only thing I can do is just ask Miss Annabelle, you know, can I take the day off? I'm kind of tired or whatever. So I went up to Miss Annabelle. I said, Miss Annabelle, I was watching The Wizard of Oz last night, and you know, Dorothy clicked her heels 3 times and said there was no place like home. I said, Miss Annabelle, if I click my heels and say there's no place like home, would you let me go home? She said, no. I said, I'm here now. I'm at work. I like that joke too. You know, the other day, it was funny. I was at Walmart down the street. I mean, you know, when you park next to somebody, you don't know who you parking next to, but you just go in there and get what you gotta get and come on out of there so you can do whatever else you're gonna do. I go into Walmart, drop off a prescription. So I'm like, okay, I know I ain't gonna be in there that long. I'm sitting in line, it might have been like 3 minutes. I dropped it off and, you know, headed back out to the car. All of a sudden it was an elderly lady. She was in her car. But she was in the back seat of the car. So I'm like, oh man, what is she doing? You know, she was on the phone. So I'm thinking, okay, she's waiting on somebody. Because I didn't see her at first when I went into Walmart, but she was just like right there. So I'm like, oh man. So I wanted to knock on the door, but I didn't want to scare her either. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just sit here and wait to see if she's okay. And like I say, she on the phone. All of a sudden, the law was pulled up, like the security guard that worked for Walmart that be in the parking lot. He pulled up and he like, well, man, you okay? You know, this. And the laws had pulled up too, because that's who she was on the phone with. She had called 911. And I asked him, I was like, well, sir, you know, what's the problem? I said, I want to help her because I seen her in the back seat and she was kind of like shedding tears. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know. I didn't want to scare her either. And he was like, oh, no, don't worry about it. He said, she thought somebody had broken her car. I was like, huh? Because when she was on the phone with him, he said, yeah, she called 911 and told the dispatch that somebody had broken her car. They took the steering wheel, the gas pedal, the radio, everything. I'm like, oh man. I said, well, what